Welcome back to Beyond the Blocks. Today we're joined by Coach Jonathan Smith, the Associate Director of Athletic Performance for Track and Field and Cross Country at the University of Georgia. Today, John is part of the athletic performance staff behind one of the premier programs in collegiate track and field. The Georgia Bulldogs are an NCAA championship winning program and a national powerhouse that continues to produce some of the top athletes in the country. We're excited to learn more about Coach John's journey, his philosophy on strength and conditioning, and what coaches and athletes at every level can take away from the work being done at one of the nation's elite track and field programs. Coach John, welcome to Beyond the Blocks.
All right. I appreciate the introduction. It's definitely a pleasure to be here.
Got it, man.
And thank you for joining us.
We want to get right into it, Coach. So you've been around strength and conditioning for a long time. Can you tell us about your path and the profession and, just how you ended up at the University of Georgia?
Yes, I guess it's been a little bit now. I guess second year at Georgia. Kind of got into strength and conditioning late into college. I initially wanted to be an athletic trainer. That's kind of my original background. I strength trained. I got into strength training when I was an athlete in high school. Went to college. I played rugby in college, still training, but I went to school for athletic training. Like I wanted to be an athletic trainer, but I guess ultimately the sports medicine realm wasn't fully what my passion was. My passion was in like, how can we develop the best athletes out there? And that's when kind of late into my college career, pretty much senior year, I started interning and just working with all sports. So I worked football for a while at Michigan State. As well as a little internship at Cincinnati, was able to come back to Michigan State for a grad assistant position, work with pretty much every Olympic sports team at Michigan State. And then once the end of that graduate assistantship, I was able to kind of take over a full-time role and work with Michigan State's track and field team. And that was kind of my first full-time exposure working with track and field. Big learning curve at the time, just learning to work with a lot of different event groups. I was always a huge track fan, always into track, just didn't work with them directly, especially in that strength conditioning role. So then it kind of took off from there. I was able to work with some good coaches that kind of taught me the realm of track and field and was able to get connected with pretty much Coach Carroll down here at Georgia. And it kind of took off from there. So this second year here, and it's definitely a blessing to be down here.
I would love to talk about that a little bit more in the sense that you were doing strength and conditioning, you were working with football, and then you transitioned over to track. What was can you talk about some of the learning curve that you went through? Because that's something that a lot of like coaches, talk about, where we, often come in contact with someone who's coming from the world of football, and it's just like lift heavy and versus like fast and strong. But can you like talk about that a little bit?
I think you kind of get brought up and like there's one way to do something, and you're kind of stuck on that one way. But then you see, like, especially track and field, there's a lot of different event groups, a lot of different training philosophies on how you can approach it. And I think even as a strength and conditioning coach, as a young strength coach, I was like, all right, this is how I train. Here's the program. This is what they're going to do. And there's kind of always like, hold on, this is what we've normally been doing. And any coach is going to be like, this is something completely different. This doesn't fit my program. We have to have a conversation about it. I'm like, what fits best. And the learning curve is like, all right, I got to learn the sport better and how they periodize, how they train, how each event group trains differently. Because that, especially in my role, I'm a support to what the main training program is. And that's the event itself, whether it's sprinting, whether it's jumping, whether it's throwing or distance running. I'm the support to that. So I have to understand their training better. And that's where I think even my time at Michigan State, that coaching staff, I was like able to really conversate with them and learn from them. And we were able to kind of support each other. I'm like, oh, how can the strength and conditioning aspect support them better? But also how can I learn from the sport itself so the training can be fit and like in harmony in that way.
I like that you said that of just learning the sport, because we do see that, like, especially on the high school side, you see strength coaches, and it's just so focused, so since football is such a higher priority than track, you get the football strength coaches who come into the track space, and it's more so if it's my way, and they're not necessarily like, hey, this is a sprinter, this is a 400 meter, this is a pole vaulter. So I like the fact that you said, hey, one, I had to just learn so that I can know and create and develop my own, my philosophy that works for that particular athlete. And a key word that you used was to support, understanding that, hey, that's your event, but I'm here to support and make you better in that particular event, not to overdo or overshadow. So I think that's dope that a lot of coaches need to take away of, like, hey, continue to learn, whatever it is you do, and just realize that we're trying to support the athlete. So I think that's pretty dope.
I think track and field is such a unique sport, and that coaches have so much experience under them, and it's all athletic performance. Like, you can say the strength coach versus the track coach, it's all athletic performance. And we're all aiming towards the same goal, but how can we align and support each other the best? That's what kind of is the goal at the end of the day for the athlete's sake, to get the best performance out of them.
So I like how you took us on your journey in regards to like how you got to University of Georgia. But in addition to your education that you got from school, what other certifications or anything did you have to get, or did you accumulate over, the time period to be in this position? Of course, like, you're being around, really good track coaches, so you're learning the sport so much, but what did you take from those additional certifications, and how were you able to collaborate them into, the role that you're in right now?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple certifications. Like, my first certification, I was an athletic trainer. I was a certified athletic trainer. Did that first, kind of didn't really use it at all. But then I got, my strength conditioning certifications that give you a great base on strength conditioning knowledge. It doesn't go specific into track and field knowledge, but it gives you, this is how you can train any athlete in any setting. And that's been a huge asset. That was the base. That was like the CSCS. And then the CSCCA has another one. That's the SCCC, the Strength Conditioning Certified. Those are two certifications I got that kind of gave me my base. Then once I started working in track and field, USAT, the US TFCCA, whole bunch of letters, they have their own strength conditioning certification. And that helped me kind of bridge the two worlds on kind of what is the track and field mindset that is commonly, this is how a lot of track and field coaches are educated on strength and conditioning. But then there's also this other terminology that, this is what strength and conditioning coaches are told. They're getting told the same things, but they're getting told it in two different ways. And how those kind of that USTFCCA, that certification kind of helped me bridge those two terminologies so I could start speaking the same language as a track and field coach. Like, what are our high days? When you say you want a heavy compound static lift, okay, that's what that means. If you're doing the speed endurance day, what should we do in the weight room if you're doing that, and how we can match those and align those, or what kind of workouts and matching the workouts.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah, I want to back up just a little bit. You may have said this, and I may have missed it, but I know you said you started at Michigan State in the graduate program. But did you always was like strength and conditioning like one of your goals entering college, or how did you end up like in that world?
I was always fascinated by athletic performance and just training in general. Like, how do you train the best? And I think I never even knew this would be a possibility when I was in college, like, especially younger in college, like, I could be a strength coach, like, because I thought the personal trainer route was another option for me. But then, like, being a strength coach for athletes at, a major university, I didn't even think that was a possibility. And I didn't even see the whole role itself. Like, there were some strength and conditioning coaches that I was around. Luckily, I was working around athletics at the time, and I was like, I see kind of, you can watch what they do and be like, that's kind of a role I think I could fit in, or I'm just fascinated by. And whatever I was fascinated in, I just kind of, hey, can I spend some more time in? Can I observe? Can I intern? And that kind of just led me down a path to just keep on pursuing, what is strength training? What is athletic performance? What are the different training methodologies? And just kind of kept on diving down that rabbit hole, and it ended me up in working with track and field, and here I am.
And I'm definitely sure, like coming from a rugby background and being an athlete in that sense, like a lot of that came from that, because to be a rugby athlete, you have to be pretty strong. You gotta have to, you know, you don't walk around and see too many rugby athletes in the grocery store. You know what I mean?
That's a fascination with fitness. It really is.
I could tell.
I'm actually curious about that because us being in California, like that's not even an option to play in high school or stuff like that. So, are you from Michigan?
Yeah, I'm from Michigan, right outside Detroit. Yeah.
So is rugby available in high school?
To some degree. I believe when I was in high school, I heard of rugby, never played it.
Okay.
Because I was mainly like football and track. And then basically there was a guy, it was probably 45 minutes to an hour away from where I live. So I wasn't really going to make that drive to go play rugby. Then once I got in college, it became the reality like, oh, I was still athletic. I wanted to play in a sport, and rugby was kind of the perfect fit. Football wasn't my full pursuit, wasn't all into football. And rugby kind of was that perfect middle ground for me.
I'm sorry, I got a question, and this might be a silly question, but I always like to tell kids there's no such thing as a silly question or a stupid question. But lacrosse and rugby, are they not the same thing?
Very different. I'll say.
Okay. Yeah. See, I'm thinking that's the same sport, just different. Okay. So what's the difference?
Rugby's like I say it to everybody. It's like a combination of soccer and wrestling, similar to football, but no pads, tackling.
Oh, okay.
That mess is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like you're in a huddle all day and you're trying to run the ball and move it, or I don't know, man. Y'all be doing some stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a sport for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen like the Now I'm picturing it like I see like the Samoan dudes doing their thing before they play. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Got it right now.
That's why when I learned out he played rugby because he posts it. I was like, whoa, like okay, yeah, that's hey, you gotta have some heart to play that because you know I like my teeth.
There's a danger to it, but
it's crazy to me that women play that because now I know the sport. I'm like, I see women doing it too, and it's like, man,
this rugby is huge right now in America. Since the last Olympics, we were able to get a medal. So that's USA women's rugby is big. Growing the sport in America, that's actually huge. It's more of an international sport. So
that's cool.
So you guys, the class of 2025 for Georgia Science for the boys and women's side was amazing signing class. And something I'm interested in is when these athletes came in, you have some athletes who come in who, you know, kind of have a good background as far as lifting, and then you have some who probably never even put a weight on a rack. What mistake do you see high school athletes make when it comes to lifting and strength training?
I guess there's two ends of that. Even from what you said, there's I've never done any of this before. I think that's a mistake that some high schoolers like, all right, it doesn't mean you need to be lifting heavy. It just means, all right, there's some sort of quality movement you should learn before you get here. It will help me out a lot. I'm not saying you have to, but it'll help the athlete out a lot too. It's just like, all right, can you squat, lunge, hinge in a very good pattern, and hold some sort of core stability, even if it's body weight. I'm not saying you have to do all this loaded prior to getting to college. The other thing is lifting with, I say, bad form, or you having coaches that were more focused on the weight rather than the actual technique and the positions and postures that you should be lifting in. So that's the two ends of the spectrum I see there. But then there's also some athletes that come in with great background and have a stellar coach that was before them and had a great training environment and can move really well. But I'll say the quality of movement is kind of the big thing that both even the novice that hasn't lifted and some of the people that have had a background that they need to work on. Is just like, make sure the quality of movement comes first, that you're in good posture, good range of motion, and can be stable in that position. So then you get to this level, all right, I can get you stronger. We can progress over time. Okay. That's pretty easy to do. It's hard to unwrite some things that were never done.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I didn't like with in high school was they had these track and field classes and have these athletes lifting, but you have like 200 people in the class and one teacher, and you expect one teacher to be watching what they're doing. So now they're just learning bad technique, and then when you learn a bad technique for so long, it's hard to fix that. So I see that a lot on the high schools level.
Yeah, each school definitely has a different scheme with that, and it's definitely something that's challenging for every school. But if you can get a good foundation and technique, the load can come with time. The strength can come with time. That's easy to teach. The movement deficiency is hard to reteach and unwire that person when they've already been wired this way for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, a lot of people, they think strength coaches just tell athletes, just hey, go lift some weights. But with your involvement specifically with the track and field team, what's that look like on like a day-to-day basis for you?
So I work with every single event group. We are a heavily involved program. Like everybody's in the weight room to some capacity. I'll also go out to practice and help out with practices that I can. But every event group lifts 2 to 3 times a week, and we have a lot of lift groups per event group, and we'll divide even the event groups up even more. Say it's just the horizontal jumpers or just the pole vaulters and multis or just the 400 group or so on, just the shot put throwers. So there are a lot of specialty lift groups sometimes, not all the time, but there's, I guess, a smaller group so we can, as a staff, as well as myself, can just give particular attention to each person, especially in season, but even out of season. So a lot of it's lift groups. The other thing is I'll come out to practice, watch practice. I might help with warm-ups, help with setup. If we're doing some sort of testing, I'll come out there to testing. Anything to continue to help out with the holistic program, the training that's going on. So anything I can help out with, I will. Sometimes we'll do mobility sessions. I'll go out to practice. We'll come to lifts. We'll do recovery sessions where it might be a bike and recovery session. It kind of depends on time, depends on the training period for each event group. Every event group's a little different, and it's just how can I support each one? So I guess a lot of tools, a lot of hats at different times, but just whatever that can do to help out the athletes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, because so our audience, there's some college coaches and things like that, but we believe it's mostly high school coaches, parents, high school athletes, and what they may not realize is in college, a lot of the event groups are broken up in their practices. So while the group is with you, the other group is with the coach doing their workouts. So that kind of helps the coaches as well. So they don't have everybody at one time. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
How does strength training differ from the sprinters, hurdlers, jumpers, throwers, and the distance athletes? Can you kind of just give us an overview of how it differs per event group?
Yeah, I would say it differs in dosage, number one. So like, especially when you come to the weight room, you're going to get stronger, you're going to get powerful. That's pretty, for every single event group, that's kind of an outcome. We're trying to make you a little bit more resilient, move a little bit better. We're going to get stronger. We're going to get a little bit more powerful, a little bit more elastic, improve your economy with running or whatever you're doing, whatever your event is. Now, it varies in different dosage and what the emphasis is. So you think about the thrower compared to a distance runner. The thrower, their lifts here 3 times a week. Sometimes it might even be more than that. And the lifts are long. Like the lifts might take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And they're slow, they're heavy, the intensity is super high in all of the weights because it is a huge emphasis for power is pretty much one of the main qualities for a thrower. But you think about, all right, a distance runner, strength is a huge part of like their health overall and improving their running economy, but them being the strongest person in the world doesn't make them a better distance runner. So that's where the weight is a little bit different, where they might be in the weight room twice a week rather than 3 times a week. And it might be 40 minutes compared to an hour or 2 hours. Same goes for like sprinters and jumpers. All right. They kind of have a little bit more of both worlds where we'll still train very heavy. The volume's a lot less. Say even pretty much all of, I say the the event groups that matter with relative strength, so meaning like force per body weight, volume would be a lot less, but the intensity would be pretty darn high, especially when it comes to off season. We're still trying to train that max force, and we get into kind of the in season. It might go from still 3 times a week, which sprints and jumps we will still do train 3 times a week, but it might transition to 2 times a week once you get in season, and a little bit lighter, a lot faster. And so those transitions happen. Even per event group, you can get more specific to their training, whether it's more single leg training, more balance work, more hip strength. Like distance runners, I work a lot more on general strength, just like being able to control their body weight, along with still max strength training and some sort of power training and plyos. But I work a lot more on general strength, whether say the throws or even sprints and jumps. We're working a lot more on, all right, there's still this max strength and power development, peak power development.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Ant.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of debates going on, and I didn't want to say debates, but I think in the strength training world of, okay, do we lift heavy? Do we lift light? Or what's the new word? I can't think of the word, but do we lift the bar fast? I think it's for the velocity. But like, what is your view on the 3 of, should it be pure heavy? Is it about moving the bar fast, or is it just, being able to lift, 2 times your body weight? Like, what's your kind of viewpoint on what is right for an athlete or in the space?
I don't think there's a straight answer on that one. I think good periodization is, I guess, the answer to all of this. Like, there's a time for certain things and a time for lifting. There's a time for lifting heavy. There's a time to not lift heavy. It all depends on kind of your training philosophy and making sure it lines up to what your goals are. So, see, like thrower, we might lift heavy all year. We might still have some speed, strength type of days where we go light, but we still might have some power outputs. It depends, like this peak power outputs, a main KPI. So like a main thing we're trying to improve throughout the season, whether it's say sprints or jumps. Sure, we want to continue to improve peak power, but that doesn't mean we're max lifting in season. So that might be majority of our lifting is a speed strength, a lighter lift, but faster. While we still might touch, all right, a heavier load to maintain some strength qualities while we are still aiming at more of a speed strength, a speed emphasis lift. Same goes for even distance. Like, you still kind of touch on qualities, even though you might back off on other qualities. It's all in the scheme of periodization. That's where you really do have to fit the training scheme that's going on with the track. There's no, I think, one correct answer with that. It's just has to be good coaching and good periodization with what qualities you're trying to hit at certain times of the year.
So you hit something, and I feel like the coaches who are listening to this need to understand. And in the high school space, you have your track coach and you have your football coach. And normally the football players who are running track are lifting on the football side. And I think that's where the conversation needs to go, because you talked about periodization, right? And that word, I feel like on the high school, even on the college level, needs to be understood on periodization, knowing where we at, working backwards, because if I've seen it close to a stake meet to where these athletes lifting heavy and they need to be lifting light around this time, or they lifting super light when it's fall training. What are we doing? So understanding periodization, or knowing what the left hand and the right hand is doing, because you can get athletes hurt or, are not produce what they are capable of because of that, though. So that word that you use is highly important.
In the high school setting, that's definitely a difficult thing to navigate, especially someone that's multi-sport, training year-round in different sports each season. And kind of to know if you have coaching staffs that are like, all right, this is going to be the emphasis during this time of the year. You can still do football training, but like, oh, I'm going to need to be ready for these couple meets. Or so on. Even when you're going summer training, I might be doing summer football training, but I'm still lifting to have, all right, I have this track background that I know I'm still want to train some absolute speed during this time, or so on.
I have something I you made reference to like max lifts, peak power, things like that. When it comes to a program like University of Georgia, testing and data, how
Mm.
how important is that for you to, utilize that information and really take track of that for all of those athletes, whether it's, like the throwers, the jumpers, the sprinters and the distance athletes. Like how dialed in are you in regards to that?
We use a pretty broad spectrum. I'll say, I guess at this level, it's almost common nowadays, but it is still very important in the data collection. So we'll look at force outputs from a variety of different ways. So you think about the basic things. All right, we look at lifts. Like, all right, we're looking at max lifts. Are we progressing in our lifts? How much can you lift? Well, oftentimes in most of our groups, we'll have a max day. Like, all right, what is your 1 rep max? What is the max force output you can in a certain lift? Say it's a clean or a squat or whatever, or some sort of Olympic lift. All right, let's see how we are developing over time in our max strength or power output in, say, an Olympic lift. We'll also use all these technologies to even track further. So that might be the velocity-based training that we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, where we track bar speeds. And say if I'm moving a certain weight, say it's whatever I say it's 100 pounds that I've been moving at, say, a 1.0, but then a month later, I'm moving at 100 pounds at a 1.3. All right, that's a progression that we need to know that we progressed. And that power output, even at that weight. Other things we look at Georgia, we're able to use force plates and test pretty weekly. So we can see exactly, all right, per body weight, how much force you're putting in the ground and how that's improving throughout time over the course of a whole year. How your power output is improving per body weight and how that's improving over the course of a year. And then we look at a lot of, I guess, other metrics. Force plates can give you a bunch of different metrics and just how your neuromuscular system is becoming more efficient and how quickly you can be able to do that jump. We can see that over time. That's another huge one. We look at individual strengths. There's a lot of different tests: hamstring strengths, hip strengths. These are all different things. We've isolated muscle strengths.
When it comes to like squats, right? There's always like an argument when it comes to deep squats, quarter squats, especially when it comes to track and field athletes. Like, what part of the where do you fit in regards to that? I know maybe the throwers may do a little bit more of a deep squat, but when it comes to sprinters, especially when you get former athletes that may have done football that do track now, or some of these young ladies or young women that you coach and train now, they may do deep squats and stuff like that. How tough or difficult is it to, have them make adjustments to doing maybe quarter squats or anything like that, if that's, the way you go?
It's typically pretty easy to go, if you've done full squatting, to go to a half squat or a quarter squat. Now, it's really hard to go the other way around, to go from the half squat. Oh, I've only half squatted my whole life. Now you're telling me to do a full squat. So my personal philosophy, but also just a general training philosophy I have, is making sure you have the ability and the strength to go through a full squat at some sort of load. It doesn't have to be a max squat. We're a program that, some athletes will go full squatting. Some athletes, we only do like a half or a parallel squat. We say like a 90-degree at the knee squat. So it's not full depth, but it's pretty close to it. Even at that deeper depth, you have a more balanced contribution of, your quads and your hip muscles. A lot of times a higher squat is more quads. So you think about the deeper you get into a squat, you're now recruiting more glutes, adductors, higher hamstring. So that's where, all right, a deeper squat has value. So it's definitely easier to go from a full depth squat to a high squat. So I think everybody needs to have that base to be able to go through a full squat. Now, does a full squat mean your butt touching the ground? Not necessarily, but like, all right, at least thighs at parallel and can go up in there.
I just had a thought. So, from your perspective as a strength coach, How would you recommend athletes, coaches, even parents, who help their athletes or high school athletes? How would they protect their hamstrings, like with regard to like strength training and getting the proper strength training in order to, when they're sprinting, to it's a whole lot to it. You're saying hamstring injuries, but from your perspective, as far as the strength part to help protect it, protect the athlete's hamstrings.
Yeah, hamstring injuries, everybody hates them. It's definitely such a multi-factored reason to any sort of injury. From at least the strength training perspective, I guess from the actual hamstring development, we say strong and long. So we try to get you as strong as you can, but also like that the muscle fascicle length can actually be long. So when it is at a stretch position, you're strong in that position. That is kind of the essential. All right, make sure we're strong in our hamstrings.
So what does that look like with regard to that training?
The exercises? I mean, it's just progressive overload and posterior chain exercises, whether that's RDLs or sometimes leg curls, mostly hip extension based exercises, just as that correlates to running the most. But we still have to do some knee dominant leg curl based exercises. Nordics we can incorporate, different back extension exercises, good mornings. They're all good exercises that you can overload and develop posterior chain strength over time. Other thing is making sure like you actually have just good posterior chain strength. So it's not just the hamstrings itself, but the whole posterior chain when it comes to glutes and even your back, your erectors, and making sure you have good posture. Say your pelvic tilt is anterior tilted, which I'm sure all of you know about, is all right. That's kind of the weak glutes or weak posterior chain. We need to connect the system and then strengthen up your core so you can get a good pelvic position. Some of that might be mobility, some of that might be strength. But getting a balanced approach on that so we can hopefully mitigate any chance. But it's, again, so many factors into it. You can't pinpoint one thing.
No, that's good. I just see that so often with athletes. So I think that's something good to speak to. Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest. I shouldn't be saying this, so kids don't follow what I'm saying. But over my time in playing sports, I've caught a few Charlie horses, cramps, and it's pretty painful. So I know me going to the gym now. I can't remember the last. I do everything leg wise, but I will not do a hamstring curl at all because of it's just the thing of just thinking like, oh, I'm gonna catch a cramp. So if I do it, I might do like 10 pounds, 15 pounds. Just the thought of the hamstring and the cramping and stuff like that just.
So even on to that point, like I think in the weight room, you can build really strong confidence in your hamstrings in ways like, all right, I'm doing some exercises where it's an RDL that I'm getting a full stretch where it feels a little uncomfortable. Oh, I might feel where I hurt my hamstring a year ago. I feel that same spot, but I'm working through that. That can build some confidence, build strength in positions that they normally might avoid going into the future. So that's definitely a value, especially if you're coming back from an injury or had a previous injury and you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, but I'm able to push through it, and week to week it's starting to feel more comfortable. Oh, I feel a lot more confident in my hamstrings going forward.
In strength coaching, it's getting the athlete strong, getting them prepared for the long strenuous season. You guys just had a long season. What can an athlete do? Because I feel like it's a partnership. What can an athlete do as well to help even make your job easier of staying healthy? What are some of the things athletes can do to?
When athletes buy into the self-care, I say the self-care, I mean like the self-treatment, the any sort of self-care, I'll just say like the foam rolling, the continuous stretching, the mobility work that you might do on your own, just so more the recovery aspect. So when you do the intense bouts, you're actually recovered for them and you're not sitting on the workout that happened with Monday. You're still feeling it come Friday just because you didn't cold tub, you didn't foam roll, you haven't been sleeping right. So I guess a lot of that is more the recovery side that the athlete can put in their own hands going into the future where they're kind of the next training bout that they're going to have, because it's a long season and you don't want training sessions to pile up in a negative way.
Can you touch on, because I think this is the biggest misconception, and athletes just, I don't think, it's like they want to go to the Georgias and all these big schools, and they think that, hey, me just going to practice and me just going to the weight room is enough. Can you touch on the other stuff of like, it's just more than just doing those two things? It's like you have to do more than just that outside. Like you mentioned, the self-care and stuff like that. So can you touch on that?
Yeah. We talk about this. Even we talked about with our athletes, and Coach Nick Saban, he's kind of the guy that said the illusion of choice. And like when you really want to be great and that's elite level, your choices become a lot easier. It's a straight line. There's all these things you have to do. You have to show up to the training room. You have to lift heavy. You have to train hard, but you also have to, all right, I'm going to eat right. I'm going to be very disciplined in my diet so I can be as lean as I can, because body composition is huge in track and field. As a huge KPI. So, all right, I'm going to be as lean as I possibly can in a healthy way and fueled properly for every session. I'm going to be hydrated. This is the thing that I think young athletes forget, is just like sleeping right, eating right, and hydration. Those are things that you can easily control and put yourself in an elite level if you do those consistently and a discipline. And all right, I'm going to get somewhere between 7 and 10 hours of sleep every night. I'm going to eat pretty darn clean 95% of the time. I'm going to make sure I'm hydrated when I wake up, in the middle of the day, and every night. So every day I'm hydrated, and you're putting yourself in the best spot to recover and train consistently at a high level. And these are things that don't really cost much. You could have all this extra stuff like, oh, I need my Normatec boots, or I need all these supplements. But no, let's iron out the basics and do that really well, because that's something you can easily control.
Right. How hard is it being a strength and conditioning coach? And I don't know when they changed this rule, but I think it's a rule now where, you can't have a conversation when it comes to weight. How hard is that being a strength coach? And, you might, with the eye see something, but you necessarily, hey, I can't say nothing to athlete A or B. Like, how hard is that?
It's definitely something you have to navigate and have a good relationship with athletes for. It's definitely like in track and field, especially when you think of sprints, jumps, any sort of distance, endurance running, it's a huge indicator for performance if the body composition isn't there. So I think it's approaching it in a very professional way. It's like, all right, we do test body composition, and we have dietitians that'll directly say, all right, your body composition can improve. Mm-hmm. From a strength and conditioning perspective, I'll go, all right, here's your peak force per body weight. Here's your force output per body weight. And I'll give them this number, all right, say they're at a 20 when they really could be at a 45 or a 50 if they improve their body comp. Not saying that, and you can almost see it in the data of like, all right, your peak force is this, but when I make it relative, it drops down. There's a lack in that. And I'm not going to always paint the picture like, hey, you need to lose weight or anything like that. It's more like, all right, this is something that is an imbalance. Right. So if they can understand that themselves, we got a good.
No problem to be able to.
Like, oh, this can easily make me better.
Right. No, that's good. No, that's
good. So just from a performance standpoint.
Yeah, I was just going to add for like our audiences, like our audience may not know there was University of Oregon's former coach years ago got basically let go, and part of that was he had a conversation with one of the athletes saying she needed to lose some weight, and she took offense to that. And that and everything made sense, but she just didn't want to hear that. And, it was deemed pretty harsh, but that sent shockwaves throughout, the NCAA ranks, and that has just been a taboo issue. So like all the coaches, and, you guys know that, Coach, but a lot of our audience may not even be aware that happened years ago. That's a thing. So that's a taboo subject.
Yeah, they should just let the athletes, sign something or check mark, to have a conversation about it or something like that. Like,
yeah, it's definitely a touchy subject in coaching still, and it's definitely something we don't like directly bring up with any athletes. Our dietitians are the main people that can kind of guide that conversation, just because they have more data on actual body weight and body composition, and they can take an actual consultation on what is your intake and how can your diet improve, or knowing the whole training load that they're going under.
So when it comes to advising, well, if you're advising a high school track and field coach, with limited equipment, limited time, limited resources whatsoever, what are the most important things they should focus on when it comes to their strength program?
I would say if you have some sort of overload, some sort of system of overload, whether that's light weights or bands, use that. Because it's just something you can progress with. You can progressively overload. But if you don't, you can even just body weight is a good base for every athlete, especially if they have no background in lifting. You can get a lot of strength improvements from just body weight and learning how to move properly, whether it's just lunges, squats, different hip exercises, even just general strength, even the upper body can go a long way. Other things like isometrics are another, I guess, if you ever heard of that, it's another big training method that you can continue to improve strength and neuromuscular synchronization just through longer duration isometrics, or you can do like an overcoming isometric where you can hold an object or forcefully go against an object where you're recruiting all the muscle units, but you don't have necessarily like 500 pounds on there. You can just go against an like immovable object or something where you don't have to have a lot of weight. You can still train the nervous system in that way and get stronger that way.
What that was what Terrell Owens was doing. Was he doing isometric or just band? Like one of those two.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Terrell Owens. Yeah, he was doing one of those.
So
yeah, isometrics are huge. It's actually growing in the field of strength conditioning and how many uses it could have, and even the recovery aspect to it.
So when it comes to like a high school athlete that gets to you and it's like your first time seeing them in the fall and you're probably doing some testing or whatever the case may be, like what's one of the biggest deficiencies you may see in, say, a high school, like an incoming freshman woman and incoming college male and college female? Like what are some of the biggest deficiencies in the weight room you may see?
I don't know if there's a particular one. There's just a general body awareness,
okay,
and that they kind of lack. I'm thinking even in particular like the pelvic control. Like, can you control where your pelvis is?
Okay,
and that's a common thing. Like people don't understand what a pelvic tilt is, or if you have your hips under you, and that's something that applies in weight room, applies on the track. Like you need to have your hips under you just so you can stand in good posture, and that's where you can put down the most force. So just a general like body awareness in that standpoint, I'm like, all right, I can hold this, and this is actually the posture I need to be in. Whether I'm squatting, whether I'm deadlifting, where I'm doing a power clean, this is how I can produce the most force against the ground. And my hips and my spine is in the proper positioning, alignment, stable in that position, so I can produce more force. So that's the thing, and that's men and women. I think sometimes you kind of see a pelvic tilt a little bit more on the women's side. But even the men's side, they struggle with it too. The other part of that is just a general posterior chain strength and control. At least I would say both on the men's and women's side is just like, all right, you can't do a glute bridge and have full control over that and full control over hip extension, activating your glutes in those ways. Those are things that I think are sometimes limited or not fully developed when they're coming to this level, even though they might be running really fast. But they're running really fast and their hamstrings are hurting every single time they run. There's a reason for that.
You said something really briefly right there, glute activation. Can you speak on that a little bit more when it comes to strength training and especially for track and field athletes?
It's more, I say glute activation, it's a popular term. It's, I think, sometimes overused, but there's a strength of hip extension that sometimes lacks. And that lack comes from the glutes oftentimes, that the glutes do not have control over that in-range hip extension. You're trying to do it with your hamstrings, you're trying to do it with your back. And that's why a lot of times somebody might run, they might have like a get up tool where they don't get full extension. And that's something that sometimes it just lacks in that pelvic control. So it's not necessarily glutes can't activate, they just aren't activating through the full range of motion that they should, or aren't firing the same timeline that they should, because your glutes are pretty much one of the prime movers in any sort of gait.
And so when that's happening, the athlete is not able to apply significant force into the ground or through the ground.
It's a leak.
That's big.
It's energy link.
I like that.
I've seen at meets where, I remember Keelan's senior year when he was in Nike, her first 60-meter, she didn't run good, and then come to find out her glutes was sleep. So not activating them in a warm up, and then understanding how do you activate them to.
A lot of that glute activation comes from a continual good posture, learning how to run in the right form. Your glutes are gonna activate well when you are in the right posture and in the right mechanics. So it's kind of a two-way street in how you can get there. You can do a lot of exercises beforehand to kind of activate the glutes, but you can also just do the mechanically do it the best you can, and your glutes should fire in the right pattern that way. There's kind of two philosophies on that, though. It's something that's definitely highly discussed.
You mentioned pelvic tilt or anterior tilt when the hips tilt forward.
Yeah.
So that can be correct. That can be corrected for an athlete. It's not like a permanent position.
Yes and no. There's some things I say there's hardware issues where, all right, your body is built that way. The bones are built that way. There's some athletes that, all right, you are just naturally in a lordosis. Your hips are slightly introverted, so you're just going to be in the slight anterior pelvic tilt. There's some people that they're built like that. But you got to make sure, can you still access that range of motion, and what is the range of motion you can access, so we can train that. Oftentimes, even this is our freshman that came in, you could kind of see as we developed posterior chain strength, their glutes, hamstring strength, started strengthening their abs. They started stretching for the first time in their life. Oh, that pelvic tilt started just to correct itself. And how we started to move in the right patterns, we're lunging and squatting really well. It just kind of corrected itself throughout the fall. And these are some of our high level athletes that were like, oh, yeah, now I just feel a lot stronger and I can run all the way through nationals without having an injury. So some of it's hardware, some of it's software. It's kind of each person's a little different. Some of it can be corrected, some of it is just a person.
I have to say, hearing this overview is really helpful, because I talk to kids about that. It's easy to see. And a lot of times I just tell them, you want to be under your center mass, so just push your hips forward where you're kind of you're tall. But they just do that, and they can automatically just feel the difference, feel the strength, and see that they're not leaning forward, and helps the front side, back side, all that. But I never really thought about all of it together in the weight room and all that kind of stuff, and how it all works together to strengthen it. So this is gold mine, this conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of correctives you can incorporate, and that's something we do with, I'd say, certain athletes that they might have a huge anterior pelvic tilt. All right, let's try to see if we can correct this with a lot of stretching, strengthening the quads, strengthening the abs, strengthening up the glutes, and feeling what does a pelvic tilt even feel like, and can you do that in a race? Can you do that in practice, in little technical drills?
What's that conversation like when that athlete, and you probably have a few of them, that they're workout warriors, they're really good in the weight room. They're getting all the numbers that, are saying that they're trending in the right direction. But then you see them go and perform, and that they're not applying the right force or having that right pelvic tilt. From your position in your job, what's your conversation like to those athletes?
I think it's always, sometimes I'll ask them straight up, all right, what are you feeling? How could we get you in a better position? And some of it is posture. There's athletes we have on our team, all right, you need to improve your posture lifting, but also because you're lifting in the same form that you're running. And you have this forward lean when you run and you can't get your knees up. Okay, that's telling me we need to correct this posture. So that's one of the conversations we'll have. Other thing is I'll always talk with our actual coaches itself. And all right, what is the leak that you're seeing Is there a direct correlation? Like, all right, this person might be strong, but they're obviously not applying force the right direction or at the right rate. Especially when you're thinking of even a sprint. Like, all right, we got your power clean's great for your body weight, but you're obviously not applying that force. So clearly something's up, whether it's the technique or even just actual force capacity in that, like speed.
You said leak. I know, but like, when you say leak, what's the leak? Like, what can you define leak?
It's an inefficiency in any sort of gait pattern, movement pattern, when there is movement in a plane other than what you want to go, or when there's just a incapacity to move fully through a range of motion that you should, or like a full stride, or you're shortening up your stride just because you're in this posture. And now you're having to recruit your back muscles, and that's why your back's getting tight. That's another thing, yeah.
That's big right there. And then it all trickles down.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of touched on this a little bit a few moments ago. You were talking about how when the athletes are making these corrections, you can see them getting better, faster. What are some key indicators you can look at to know that athletes are getting stronger, more explosive, and ready to perform, like during the course of a fall training or a season or whatnot?
Luckily, I have a lot of data, so you can see simple things are like, all right, the weight, when they're in the weight room, we can see, all right, you're lifting more weight, especially throughout fall training for all of our athletes. We're just going simple progressive overload through each phase. All right, we're now cleaning 10 pounds more than we did last month. That's awesome for the same amount of reps. So that's something that we can show the athletes, oh, you're actually getting better. You can also see it in the basic movements of RDLs, squats, lunges, whatever it is, deadlifts. All right, there's progressive overload. A month ago, you weren't able to do this weight. Now you can. Other thing, velocity based. That's another progressive thing. We can see, all right, we were moving, especially in season. And I can even say from middle of outdoor season, we had some of our women sprints. All right, they were moving the peak power output at like a 2.0 on power cleans. And then we get to pretty much regionals going into nationals. We're moving that same weight at a 2.3, 2.4 for the same athlete. Like, oh, that's a progression. And that's something we can see. All right, we're now moving the same weight at a faster load. Other things is the force plates. We can track that. That's something that's tracked pretty consistently. So we take averages over time period and can see, all right, our force per body weight is now starting to improve. You're applying force at a better rate. So that's something, the overload, seeing the progression through overload, through when kind of everything is lining up. It's actually a huge key for the coach to understand, all right, stuff's working, but also I can show this to the athlete like, hey, you're stronger than you ever been. That's something, even in season, I've done that with, say, some of our novice athletes, like some people that aren't that strong, that still are new to the weightlifting, like, all right, go up and weight, do this weight that you haven't ever done before. Even knowing in my mind as a coach, they're going to be able to do it because I've been looking at them do, say, 100 pounds and they're moving faster than ever. All right, jump up to 125, see what happens. And boom, they do it and they're really confident. And now we can apply that to the track.
I like that.
So we talked about this earlier, but I kind of just want to touch on it. Being, a strength coach, long season, you guys just did tremendously on the at the NCAAs. As a strength coach, being a part of that, watching the athletes break records, score points, stuff like that. Like, how did you feel as a strength coach, and talk about what it feels like being a part of of that as well?
It's special. Let's be honest. Like, even this past year was pretty darn special to see the growth of our athletes. And that's what I think this last season, you could just see the growth. We're a young team. The majority of our athletes were pretty young overall. And you can see them like, all right, they trial by fire and they came out on the other side. And those are the people that we had at nationals. and they've been through it. To see the adversity that they had and the growth they've had physically and mentally, and to see them actually perform at that level on the big stage, it was pretty special. Like, we have a pretty special, I say special a lot, because it's a unique coaching staff. We are high level performers, athletes, staff all around, and it's very unique, and it's an honor to be a part of, because like that's what I thought about even coming through this last nationals. Like, each year is different. Last year was awesome just to be able to be a part of that, because that was another unique group where we had a lot of talent in that team. And then this team, it was just one of the, it was a grinded out development group. Like, they really trained for it. They really worked hard throughout the year to get to that level, and it was always on the eyesight, and not everything went the way they planned. That adversity happened to every single one of the athletes, and to come out in a good situation on both sides is pretty darn good.
That's good. That's good. Who would you say? I feel like we all have, mentors or people we look after or even learn from. Who would you say your mentors are, or those guys that you kind of follow that still, doing their thing, whether it's, on the professional side, college side? Like, who are some of your mentors and guys you follow, or women?
Yeah, I guess at least from a track standpoint, the Boot Nader, Dan Path, they're people that have so much education out there that when I first got into it, I was like, oh, I'm starting to understand this holistically. And they continually put out education, and luckily a lot of them are connected to Georgia, so we can get conversations with them. That has been a huge asset. So some of the, I say, legends in the field is good to be able to conversate with, or just pick up little cues from our coaching staff. Believe it or not, I love having small conversations on training, because they have a huge background, they have knowledge, they have different mentors and come from different backgrounds, and where we can just talk over training. So that's huge aspects. I have people back in Michigan that I say my more personal mentors and people I kind of navigate this life with. But that's kind of the main crew. Some of the legends, and I swear I'm working with some legends in the field right now at the University of Georgia. So it's pretty awesome to just be able to work around this crew. So they're kind of all mentors to keep me advancing in my role and professional, and just trying to get the best out of performance out of everybody.
Yeah, you're probably in a very envious position to some of your peers, especially being so young. Like you said this is, how many years have you been in this field?
I believe this is completing year 5. So not at all. 5 years full time. I mean, I did internships and grad assistantships before that. This is 5 years full time working in track and field.
Yeah, you're in a great position. So that's great.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I said it. Congratulations too for the weekend. The wins and all that. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a special group, and it's an honor to be in this position. Really. Mm-hmm. Yeah, working with such a great coaching staff that's got a lot of experience, and being able to just support them, even I'm still pretty young, and learn from them is an honor.
Was it hard for you to leaving Michigan? Because you went Michigan to Georgia, right?
Yeah.
So was that a hard transition to leave? You're leaving family, friends, stuff like that. Or was it kind of like a
it's funny. I was just talking to some people about that. It's really it's a step of faith. Like, I didn't know anybody in Georgia. I'm from Michigan. When I was working at Michigan State, I lived an hour away from my parents, but pretty much had faith in what the coaching staff was. I interviewed here, thought it was a good situation, and it really has been a blessing since I've been down here. So I didn't know anybody. It just kind of worked out, and I just knew it was a good professional decision to kind of continue my development.
Yeah, I say from the outside looking in, they're doing well, and they're going to continue doing well, and you're going to grow with them. And you're in a situation where if you say you're there the next 15 years, that could literally set you up for the rest of your career. You know what I mean? With the possible success that you all can, have together.
Yeah. It's University of Georgia track and field is hot right now.
Mm-hmm.
But every year we got to adapt. Every year we have to advance, and happy to be a part of it.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty dope that you're a coach, you're a high school coach's dream, and I'll say that is because, or any just track coach's dream, just because you adapted the culture of track and field. You learn the sport. You say you're out there. You're understanding you're just understanding all of the events. You're interacting with the athletes, and it's really cool to talk to a strength and conditioning coach who just can relate totally to track and field. Like everyone doesn't have that, that they don't have that, and I've had, one or two really good trainers. However, and they were good with the kids and they did what they can, but like being able to be out there and connect with the program specifically for track and field, and then you're able to grow and go get those certs for them and the USATF stuff and all of the other certifications. It's amazing, man. And like Coach Will said, like for you to be, this young and getting your career started and having so much success, dude, you got a gold mine of knowledge and wealth that a lot of guys or women in your position would really truly appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I just kind of follow passions. That's what I always tell other interns. Just follow your passions and see where it takes you. And it's in a good spot to be right now.
So I got a question for you. All right. Because 2027 is we got the Rugby World Cup, right? Got the Rugby World Cup. All right. U.S. call you. They call you right now.
I ain't that good. I'm gonna tell you that straight up. I ain't that good. I got to start training at home. Try out for that team. I'm nowhere near as that good. Those guys are serious. Yeah. I kind of gave up those aspirations a long time ago.
Yeah, I'll still probably try to make it out there. Like, hey.
That's how you get off.
He said he gonna go get the training kit. Just go try out, just to get the training kit and just say you did that.
Yeah, it's no joke. That training, it's no joke. When you're saying some elite rugby training, it is not easy.
So what does the summer look like for you? So we just ended the season. Is our kids still staying campus and we still training in the pros and stuff like that? Or is it just kind of, okay, we quiet season, writing up the program for them to go home for the summer? Like, what does summer look like for you?
I guess it's a mix of everything. Like, if athletes, I'm still supporting the athletes in whatever way I can. So we have athletes that whenever they ended their season, they have a break. I also give them a training program for when they go home. They might still be on campus and do the training program. They might be at home and still do the training program for the summer. And that's just getting them ready to come back in the fall for, say, our cross-country athletes. They're getting ready for cross-country season. It was, say, if our track and field athletes are getting ready for fall training. But then we also have our, post-NCAA season and competitions that a lot of our athletes do, whether that's U.S. championships or Commonwealth games that some athletes are doing internationally. Everybody's kind of have a little bit different schedule, or even our pros that are around. So we keep on training. Some of them are here. Some of them might be going back home. So some of our international students, they go back home and I'll send them the training program. I'll check in on them and they'll keep on training for their meets throughout the summer. And then everybody that's here, we keep on training. We take a little break. That is just a couple days, but I'm not the best.
Yeah, that really ain't much break. It's nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Is it hard to keep a balance of all the different athletes and where they are and stuff like that? Is that tough, or is it, the way the setup you guys have makes it pretty easy?
It can definitely be challenging, and it's sometimes hard to keep up with. that's where I do rely on the event coaches to give me like their actual specific coach. Like, all right, what's the schedule? What's the training plan for this individual? All right, they're training in this trajectory. This is kind of their big championships. Okay, great. Then we have, all right, this other athlete there might have a different competition schedule, have a little bit different trajectory depending on what is their main competition they're trying to do throughout the summer. So it is a lot of moving schedules. But generally, like, we have some decent training groups, so they can kind of stay on the same plan, just kind of move things around a little bit based off of what their main competitions are.
If every high school coach and athlete watching this interview could take away just one lesson about strength training, what would you want it to be?
I would say, I mean, there's only benefits from strength training. So I would say do it and do it consistently, but make sure it fits what you're doing and the quality of it. So like movement comes first, but then make sure it fits whatever your goal, your scheme is. So if it doesn't affect whatever you're really training for, whether it's a basketball player, whether it's a football player, a track athlete, like, all right, you're intentionally being very intentional about how you're progressing and how you're incorporating it, whether it's, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, be intentional and be consistent. So it fits your means to whatever end it is. Yeah, that's kind of the main things. I think a lot of coaches back off of it just because it's another thing. At least sometimes what I hear, like, all right, that's another stressor. We should just stop doing it all in general. Or it's completely in contrast with what their main training is. So just make sure it matches and that it is consistent. Now you can vary the periodization of it, like, all right, how intense it is, how much volume it is, depending on what your goals are in the year, but just incorporate it and make sure it fits you. And you can use resources to make sure it fits you, fits what your scheme is.
And then, I got one last question. Can you talk about how important rest is? I mean, I don't think people really understand how much important rest is. It's like sometimes I feel like we get in with season and then you got, whoever the next coach is, it's kind of like, hey, we got done Friday in the season. Now Monday is back to still living heavy and stuff like that. So can you just talk about how important rest is?
Yeah, there's, I'll say, two sides of that coin. Some of it, you need the mental rest, especially after a long season. And I'm talking to athletes even earlier today. I'm like, well, they just mentally are feeling the season. Like, I don't know if I can keep on doing these workouts. Like, it's been 9 months of doing hard workouts. You just need a mental break. Once you hit that wall, it's hard to continue to grind through that. Not saying it's impossible, it is hard to. Then the physical aspect, there's a lot of adaptations in just the rest component. And like you thinking of the conclusion of the season, you need almost a complete stop oftentimes to just completely restore the body. Whether you get banged up throughout the season, it's a common thing, but a good reset is needed. How long that is, it kind of depends on the person, and what is full rest depends on the person. Doesn't mean you're completely inactive. It means, all right, I'm doing a lot less than what I did before. Each person's a little bit different. Some people take a whole month doing nothing. Some people, all right, I'm going to start biking or just lifting. That's a common thing we'll do. Some athletes that I've done in the past, like, all right, this is a rest, but you can come in the weight room, do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
So that rest is a huge restoration on, especially if you're resetting the season.
Yeah.
Even kind of a small-sided look at it, I think rest is something when I was an athlete, I didn't fully understand. Like, I thought, I got to train as hard as I can, as often as I can to get the best I could possibly be. But during the rest, that's when the full adaptation occurs. So even when it's like a peaking season or like when you're actually backing off, like athletes got to understand this break in, like you're resting or a short practice or having an extra off day, like that's on purpose so you can get the full adaptation and really be your best come whatever in the future it is. So I think rest is sometimes often misunderstood, but that's when the true growth happens, is when you're resting.
And when you mentioned rest too, many coaches, like high school coaches or even parents, don't understand that rest, a lot of the times when they're around good coaches and programs, rest is programmed within the training regimen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of parents don't understand that. They're like, oh, we have a coach didn't give us a practice day. That's because rest is required. And some people do not understand. Right. Right. They want to fill in the gap. Like, oh, I'm gonna go get them some extra training. No.
And sometimes that messes up the whole training program.
Period.
And that's where trusting the coaches, trusting the process. I talk to athletes about it too, because there is anytime you're going through a training program, you're like, there's this antsiness, like, oh, I need to fill this time. I need to fill the training program, whatever gap I'm doing. If there's something that I think that's lacking, oh, I got to fill it with more stuff. Like, more isn't always better. So like there is a time to deliberately do super low intensity stuff just to
or nothing
else out of your training program.
Nothing at all. Right. Yeah.
Well, Coach Jon Smith, we really appreciate you taking the time with us today. This was amazing. Definitely from a strength and conditioning, perspective for track and field specifically. This is pretty dope, especially coming from the program that, you're affiliated with there at University of Georgia. You definitely gave our listeners a great look into what strength and conditioning really means for track and field athletes, from developing speed and power to staying healthy, performing at their best when it matters most. So I definitely think coaches, athletes, and parents at every level can take something away from this conversation, whether it's just, working with a full weight room or just getting started. And like you mentioned, using bands and using body weight exercises, like there's ways to get around the, deficiencies or the resources. So we definitely appreciate you sharing your experience and perspective in all aspects. And we definitely wish you and University of Georgia continued success moving forward.
Appreciate it.
And also, before we go, where can our listeners find you? Where can they follow you on Instagram, Twitter, or what you got, TikTok or something? Rugby.com.
I guess you can follow me on Instagram. Instagram is easy, or you can always send me an email. My Instagram is just Jon L. Smith _ or email me at john.smith@uga.edu. If anybody has questions, I'm always open to stuff. It's definitely been a pleasure to be a part of this. I hope this has been a help.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I am not the smartest person in the world. I'm just lucky to be around some smart people.
Hey, man, you're an NCAA championship coach. That's pretty dope, man.
Yeah.
Real.
But
one thing I want to say too, I'm sorry, but I just want to say I really appreciate your humility. Like you're very young, very successful, but very, very humble. And that really comes off as like genuine. So I just want to like recognize that, give you props for that. And it's like, I think that's really cool. So like, yeah, keep that humility, keep that hunger. And just like, I don't really know you. Like, Anthony knows you, but I'm already proud of you as if you're like a family member.
I appreciate it, man.
Seeing great things.
That's dope.
Yeah. It's been a blessing to route, but we just keep on going.
There you go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So with that being said, for Anthony Lewis, Will Humphreys, and myself, Coach Lonnie Davis, thank you for joining us here on Beyond the Blocks. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with another coach, athlete, or parent who could benefit from this conversation. With that being said, we'll see you next time on Beyond the Blocks.